Imagine there is a criminal on trial for murder. Everyone expects that he is to be sentenced to life in prison. The evidence is airtight, there is even video footage of the murder clearly showing the suspect. But, to everyone's surprise, the judge stands up and declares that he feels sorry for the criminal and will take the criminal's place in jail for life, letting the criminal free without any punishment for his crime. Would you object to the judge's actions? Of course. But why? The reason why we object to something like this is because we understand that punishment does not exist as something that needs to be satisfied independent of who committed the crime. We understand that people are punished, not crimes. No matter how much the judge wants to, he cannot take the punishment of the guilty. It simply does not make sense to do so. Likewise, it is not justice when one person is punished for another person's sins. Compassionate it may be, but just it is not. But the scenario of Jesus' sacrifice for our guilt is no different. It is based on an incoherent interpretation of justice in which punishing something else means the guilty are free from punishment. Imagine that someone you loved was murdered, and you did everything in your power to find the person responsible so that they could be brought to justice. But imagine the murderer was never found. Now, what if an innocent but incredibly passionate friend came up to you and told you that they were willing to say they were guilty and suffer the punishment so that you could have closure? Would something like this truly give you closure and make you feel better? Of course not. The fact that some random person is being punished doesn't help at all, even though the crime is technically being punished. This is because true retribution seeks to make a guilty person pay for what they have done. But according to the kind of justice in atonement theory, you should feel as good about your innocent friend taking the punishment as you would about the actual murderer taking the punishment. Atonement is incompatible with everything we know about justice. But there is another problem with this idea as well. If Jesus fulfilled the punishment for humanity's sins, that means he is spending several billion eternities in hell right now, correct? Of course, Christians will undeniably answer no. Jesus is currently residing in heaven at the right hand of God. Jesus died and after 3 days got to be God. How is this an equal punishment to several billion eternities in hell? It isn't. An eternity that ends is not an eternity. There are two options at this point. Either Jesus is burning in hell for several billion eternities and will never escape, or God is not required to punish sins to their full extent. The former is denied by Christian theology, while the latter makes Jesus' sacrifice purposeless in the first place. Why do I say purposeless? Because if God is able to scale down the punishment in Jesus' case, he is equally able to scale down the punishment in our case as well. Atonement is not only incoherent in light of what we know about justice. Even if it were true, Jesus never paid the full price for our sins, making his sacrifice ultimately worthless.